Short week, so it's time to immediately talk 49ers-Titans. I took a few hours off yesterday. Normally, my weekly schedule involves an entire Tuesday semi-off. You'll still see me tweeting some stuff, but I generally try to unplug and disconnect to kind of, in between bites of sushi, you take some of the ginger to cleanse the palate. Well, I have to cleanse the palate before the next game. And this week, it's not as easy to cleanse the palate because the game's on Thursday. So the 49ers have just over or just under 100 hours to get ready for this next one after an impressive win over the Atlanta Falcons. So it is the 49ers and the Tennessee Titans on Thursday. I will likely come out with a dedicated roster video or dedicated game preview video from Nashville, probably from my girlfriend's house on Thursday before the game because the game is not till 7 p.m. Central Time, so I'll have time to do that. But I have to work around my travel schedule, and tomorrow is the flight. And when you fly back east, you lose almost the entire day, especially when you have a layover. And tomorrow I do have a layover going through Dallas, so say hi if you're on your way to Nashville and you're on my flight. But we have to work around that as far as these videos go. So this is the roster breakdown, but I'm making it preview themed. We're going to look at the 49ers roster through the lens of playing the Tennessee Titans. So I have the 53-man up there right next to me. And we're also going to start reverse this time. We'll start with the cornerbacks and we'll get to the quarterbacks. So if you're interested in hearing more about Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, all this and all that, well, I had a big video about Garoppolo yesterday, so subscribe to the channel. You can just stop watching this and go watch that instead if that's what you care about. But if you care about everything, just stick through to the end of this video and we will definitely be discussing Garoppolo, Lance, and the 49ers quarterback situation as we go through the entire roster. Anyway, without further ado, here you go. We'll make it a little bit bigger, and we're going to start down here. We're going to start with that cornerback position. And in fact, I should probably change some of my injury shadings, which I hadn't done yet because the week has changed things, but we'll just talk about them anyway. It's not going to be that big of a deal. I'm not signed into the right account right now, so I don't think I have access to change them. And I'm not giving any of you permission to change the 49ers 53-man roster. So anyway, cornerback position. The 49ers, obviously Dante Johnson still at the top here. That's why I need to change this because I think Ambry Thomas is a guy that they're going to continue rolling with for now at that starting cornerback spot opposite Josh Norman. Ambry Thomas statistically had a very, very poor outing against the Atlanta Falcons. They picked on him. I'm guessing the rating when throwing toward him was nearly perfect, right? He did force that one incompletion. And, it was unfortunate because even on the play where he was in perfect position to grab a pick, the book on Thomas reared its ugly head. And the book on Thomas is that he's just not strong enough yet. The 49ers have needed him to put more muscle on, to be stronger at the point of the reception. And unfortunately, even though he seems to know the scheme well, he moves well, he's in position that you want him to be in. Unfortunately for Thomas, he's not able to win at the point of reception yet. And it happened multiple times against the Atlanta Falcons. But I think that ultimately this is something that the 49ers view as encouraging because he wasn't getting roasted. There weren't guys 5 yards, 10 yards behind him. He was where he was supposed to be in position to make a play on essentially all of the targets that the Falcons made into his coverage. But this has been the book on Ambry Thomas ever since he came to the 49ers. Remember that he missed all of the 2020 season because he opted out. And one of the main reasons he opted out is because he dealt with colitis before the 2019 season. And that led to him losing 34 pounds just weeks before Michigan took the field for his final year of football there. I think that Ambry Thomas never fully regained that strength on the football field in 2019 for Michigan, even though he put together a good season. But college is different than the NFL. You're playing against grown men on the outside of the NFL that have superb ball skills that will be able to outflex their way to the football at the point of attack if you're not strong enough. And I think Ambry Thomas, he's worked back from the colitis, obviously. That was a while ago, that was multiple years ago. But in general, strength was the 49ers' number one area of this is where you need to improve when he first showed up this offseason, when he was there in training camp. And let's be honest, rookies, people expect rookies to be finished products on day one in this short attention span day and age. That's just not the case. And especially with a guy like Ambry Thomas, who didn't come in with a naturally, muscular frame. Some guys do, but most guys don't. Most guys are 21, 22-year-olds who just don't have that 25, 26, 27-year-old grown man body yet. And Ambry Thomas is going through it right now in an NFL strength program. And the biggest gains that you make in an NFL strength program happen in the offseason, because you can't be lifting yourself to death to the point where you can't walk when you have to start at cornerback on Thursday, right? So I think at this point right now, realistically, Ambry Thomas just won't be strong enough to do some of the and win some of the battles that you have to win one-on-one in the NFL, which is why it's so important that the 49ers get Emmanuel Moseley back. If this team has any desires and goals, which they obviously do, of making a deep playoff run against the team that could really victimize them downfield with a good quarterback and a good set of wideouts, well, the 49ers are going to need to have Emmanuel Moseley. They have 34-year-old Josh Norman on one side. He got beat, obviously, on the deep ball against Atlanta. But Norman, he's held his ground enough for the 49ers to be able to play around that if they have Moseley on the other side. But if they don't have Moseley on the other side against an elite pass receiver hookup, it's going to get targeted, right? They're going to find Ambry Thomas. They're going to find Norman when Ambry Thomas is actually doing his, complete blanket job. And for the most part, he was covering well, but he's still playing a bit small. And I think he's going to play bigger as he gets stronger and as he gets more confident. But I just think that probably will be an off-season project for the 49ers. The good news is that he's on the right track. I mean, if he gets bigger and more confident, Ambry Thomas has already done the hard part, and he's shown the ability to stay with NFL receivers in an NFL scheme. And it's so important that the 49ers have two of these cornerbacks that can play solid man coverage, because the league is moving that way. Cover three is dying, right? The 49ers started under Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh as a cover three Seattle-style zone defense. The percentage of cover three of the 49ers have run has dropped over the course of every single season. That was the defense of last decade. NFL teams are running it at much less regularity now, and the 49ers need good press man corners. That's why you're seeing the downsizing. They don't have the Richard Sherman prototype anymore. They need guys who could press at the line of scrimmage and then stay in that man coverage moving backwards. And Ambry Thomas has shown that ability, but now he has to show the ability to finish. I think the 49ers keep him in there against the Tennessee team that's, I think, a bit shorthanded on wideout. They should have A.J. Brown back, but I don't think they're going to have Julio Jones. And I think the 49ers allow Ambry Thomas to continue learning right now, especially when the other option is Dante Johnson. They have Dante Johnson on speed dial. He's ready on the sideline just in case stuff blows up. But I think once you start facing the Rams again in week 18, I mean, you have more growth runway with the Texans coming up right after this. But once it's the Rams in week 18 and then the playoffs, you better hope that you have Emmanuel Moseley back. And Emmanuel Moseley is currently on injured reserve, which is why he's not on this cornerback portion of the depth chart. But you have Thomas, you have Norman, you have Dante Johnson, no longer in the red. He's back after the passing of his mother. You have obviously Deommodore Lenoir, who is, I don't think has been as good in the footwork aspect and the movement aspect of coverage as Ambry Thomas, but he actually might be a little bit stronger and more polished in the other areas. But right now the 49ers feel that Thomas on the aggregate's the better option. But you have Lenoir also there in case the 49ers need him. When Thomas went through his concussion and the protocol in that previous game that the 49ers played on the road in Cincinnati, it was actually Deommodore Lenoir who finished it out. At nickel, you have K'Wan Williams, who I think is playing some of his best football. We don't talk about K'Wan Williams enough, but he had a great breakup in the game against the Falcons on Gage, right? Coming out of the slot, diving breakup. I mean, K'Wan, the guy, he's just so acrobatic. Of course, he's small, but he's strong. He packs a lot of punch in that smaller frame, which is exactly what you need at the nickel position, because the nickel has to get down and dirty. They're closer to the box. They're going to have to come in on some of those blitzes Well, K1 Williams is a great blitzer. We saw that save the game against Cincinnati. 2 huge blitzes from that nickelback position did what they were intended to do for the 49ers. One was a sack. I think it dropped Joe Burrow for 14 yards. And the other one freed up Nick Bosa because CJ Uzoma, a much bigger body, had to come up and block K1 Williams. So small frame, packs a lot of punch for K1 Williams, and then obviously he can cover. And I think we don't talk about him nearly enough, but he's been doing a hell of a job. Takes so much pressure off of 2 sketchy cornerbacks for the 49ers, right? That's the weakness of this defense, is this cornerback position. So if that's the weakness, I mean, that's a tough weakness to have in the NFL, but you better be really good at other spots, nickel being the first one of them. Otherwise, they're just going to roast you with a third receiver instead of the first 2. So K1's been doing a hell of a job. And you talk about needing to, make up for poor play in the secondary with, strength elsewhere. Well, how about the 49ers safety position? These guys were awesome against the Falcons. Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward. Tartt, I thought the Falcons completely screwed up their 4th and goal play call at the start of the game. I hate when teams move into the shotgun and empty the backfield on a short down and distance situation. And let me make it clear, I think the 49ers loved it. So while I might have hated it as a football enthusiast, somebody that studies play calling and looks at game strategy, the 49ers defense was licking its chops, because what Atlanta did is that they removed the running threat from the table. And when you remove the rushing threat from the table, everybody on the back end can play pass. Because guess what? Matt Ryan's not running a quarterback draw from a 1-yard line. The guy's a statue at this point of his career. Saw the 49ers chase him down so many times. So Falcons empty the backfield, go into the gun on 4th and 1. Jaquiski Tartt sees that he's going to be in pass coverage. And he also knows that he's going to have to fight his way through some traffic on that out pattern that Matt Ryan ended up throwing out there toward the pylon. But Tartt is fast enough, and I think most importantly on this play, he's physical enough to fight through the scrum of goal line traffic. And then obviously he's heady enough, he's instinctual enough to get to the right place in time to break that pass up. And that game might have turned out a whole lot differently had Jaquiski Tartt not made that play. But I do think that, he's smart. He saw that backfield empty, and he knew that he wasn't going to have to worry about a running play. He knew that he was going to have to be bolting to the perimeter from his formation, and he got to the perimeter in time. And hey, on a play like that where you need every single, step, every single millimeter to make sure you get the pass breakup, I think Atlanta gave the 49ers a big advantage by not having anybody in the backfield, by not having that rushing threat. But still, Jaquiski Tartt, awesome play. He flipped the guy at the end of the game in the end zone. He really bookended goal line stands, right, with great play. And then the third goal line stand, the 49ers became, I think, like the first team in the modern era or something like that. Don't quote me on this, but Kiana Martin, who works for the 49ers, had the great stat. The Falcons were inside the 10 3 times in this game, and they came up with 0 points on those 3 trips inside the 10-yard line. So it was 2 goal line stands and 1 stand inside the 10. And that third, both of the goal line stands, Jaquiski Tartt put the finishing touches on him. But the stop inside the 10 on 4th down on Cordarrelle Patterson, that was Jimmy Ward, a torpedo coming into the backfield. The 49ers are getting very, very quality play from their safeties. So much so that, Talanoa Hufanga is just a bonus piece. And I think he's doing good stuff as well. But between Tartt and Ward, you got something cooking for the 49ers up the middle of that defense in the back end. Ward, is great in pass coverage and run support. He's one of the more underrated players in football, in my opinion. And Jaquiski Tartt, really, when he's healthy, he's a force. So we've knock on wood every week. We don't like injuries around here. Knock on wood that Jaquiski Tartt can stay healthy. So you got some underrated pieces in this 49ers secondary. People like to be negative. People like to talk about the outside cornerback position. I'll do my job and I'll talk about the struggles there and the fact that's the weakness of this 49ers defense. Of course, I'll talk about that. But I'm not out here looking for clicks. I'm out here trying to talk some ball. And I know it doesn't get as much traction to say that K1 Williams is underrated, that Tartt is underrated, that Ward is underrated, that Hufanga is doing good stuff. But I have to tell you guys, those guys are saving the 49ers secondary right now. It's weak on the outside, but I really like how it looks up the middle. All right, on to the linebacker position. This is again last week's injury situation because I haven't changed the shadings yet, and I will after Kyle Shanahan speaks today. Aziz Al-Shire might be back this week. Dre Greenlaw might be back, but I think it's less of a chance. Either way, I think you could probably count on one of the 49ers two linebackers being back this week, and I think that's important because this unit has really been thinned out due to these injuries. Now, Fred Warner played his best game of the season against the Atlanta Falcons. He had 9 tackles. He recovered a fumble. He had a quarterback hit, and he had a huge pass breakup. I mean, we talk about the goal line stand. Well, Fred Warner on third down of that goal line stand at the start of the game was working against the tight end and had a big pass breakup. And it's not easy. I mean, Warner's a fast linebacker, so he doesn't have the biggest frame. I mean, around the league, linebackers have downsized from 250 now to Warner's got to be somewhere in the probably 230s. I don't know what exactly he's listed at, but he's definitely built from that wiry strength cloth. That way he can cover some of these, guys downfield. And when you're working against the block primary tight end, as he was on that play, when you're working against a big body tight end, he could shield you in the back of the end zone. He could box you out basketball style. But Fred Warner was all over that play. I thought it was his most opportunistic game of this 2021 season, and we may finally be seeing the Fred that the 49ers inked that big-time contract extension. I thought the level of play slightly dipped this year up until that game against Atlanta, but I thought Fred Warner was everywhere where he should be. I thought it was really important for the 49ers because you could see the status of this linebacker room when Al-Shire, who'd been playing great football, is hurt. Greenlaw's hurt. Then you're really digging into smoke and mirrors at the linebacker position, right? Demetrius Flannery-Fells is a depth piece. Marcel Harris is a former safety who, you like in lighter packages, and he's a missile out there. He could play that run support, but he's not a standard linebacker. So it leaves the 49ers defense a little bit in a funny spot when they only have one of their starting linebackers available. That's a low-key area where this team has to get healthier before they start facing better competition. Now, I promised I'd talk a little bit about Tennessee, so we'll loop this into, what this means as far as a matchup between the 49ers and the Titans. And the Titans are really struggling offensively this year. We're used to this Tennessee team being I don't want to say a juggernaut, but a team that's really, really dangerous offensively and definitely a juggernaut on the ground with Derrick Henry. But Ryan Tannehill has been good over, recent memory, right? Up until this season, Ryan Tannehill was running that play action off of the Derrick Henry fakes with very high efficiency. We're talking top 5 efficiency in the NFL. Well, that's not the case anymore this season. Obviously, Derrick Henry is hurt, but the Titans are still running the ball decently well. It's the receiver injuries. A.J. Brown's been out. Julio Jones has been out. And Ryan Tannehill, without that Henry spine, right, and without his receivers, has been having his least efficient season in a Tennessee uniform. I mean, we're talking like bottom of the barrel ranks nearly here. I mean, I just put out a tweet. We could check this out. There I am on Twitter. Inception. Picture in picture. Right here. Ryan Tannehill. He has a 3.1% interception rate, and he leads the league in picks. He's tied with Burrow and Lawrence. And I'll make this one bigger right here. Adjusted net yards per attempt is a good efficiency stat because it includes interceptions, right? So when touchdown passes or interceptions are factored into the formula, you can get an idea for, is this guy and his big time plays and his big errors, are they overshadowing the other efficiency? What's the distribution here? So just the net yards per attempt does a good job. It's actually a good predictor for the MVP award in the NFL. Usually the quarterback who leads in adjusted net yards per attempt, more often than not, he's actually going to win that award. Well, Tannehill obviously isn't winning the award. He's only at 5.03 adjusted net yards per attempt, which ranks number 26 in the league. So remember, this factors in the picks. The only quarterbacks who have been worse are Davis Mills, who the 49ers face next week against the Texans, Sam Darnold, Jacoby Brissett, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson. So much for starting a rookie quarterback. But Ryan Tannehill has been nearly as bad. And that's what those 14 interceptions with the limited efficiency will do. So the 49ers are in a position here where they're obviously happy that they're not facing Derrick Henry because he's such a load to bring down in the December chill of Nashville, right? So that helps the 49ers defense. But mostly they've got to be licking their chops that Ryan Tannehill's been so inefficient this year and that the Titans haven't pass protected well for him this year. And that's a normal trend. The Titans don't normally pass protect well. They're a lot like the 49ers in that they're better run blockers than they are pass blockers. But I think it's like number 24 in the pass protection this season for the Tennessee Titans. And for a team that does like to run play action, Tennessee, they like to pick on the second level of a defense, right? They like to pick on that linebacker level. So it's good that Fred Warner is playing or is coming off his best game for the 49ers. And guys like K'Wan Williams, guys like Tart, guys like Ward, the safeties are going to have to be, on their game in this game, especially since the Titans are so banged up on the outside. I could see them trying to target shorter routes off of play action, and the 49ers are going to have to be on their P's and Q's on the inside. That leads us to the 49ers defensive line. So in this situation right here, the Titans not being great in pass protection, Ryan Tannehill not playing his best ball, but actually playing really inefficient ball this season, and Derrick Henry obviously not being available, that this is a spot where the 49ers can continue their surge up front. This is a reminder, too, because I just thought of it. I'm going to be doing a special video on the 49ers defensive line later today after practice. So if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe right now. But later on today, when we talk 49ers D-line, we'll get further into this. But the big, thing right now is that the 49ers D-line, as you can see right here, these are the names. Maurice Hurst is still shaded in red. I don't think he's going to be available. No, I just saw a question right here. I'll drop away to answer. Kinlaw is not coming back this year. He had ACL surgery, so it's next year for Kinlaw. But the 49ers defensive line, despite losing Kinlaw, despite losing Maurice Hurst, despite starting the season off in fashion that wasn't great, they have turned it up. And that was their best game against the Atlanta Falcons. And to me, this is remarkable, notable, whatever you want to apply to it adjective-wise. Defensive lines, to me, they don't normally peak at the right time of the season. Generally, defensive line is one of the positions of attrition, right? It's one of the positions of, these guys have been banging it out in the trenches for the whole season, and December hits and guys are hurt, and it's just not as pretty. The 2019 49ers are a excellent example of that. The 2019 49ers started out the season gangbusters. I mean, they were firing off the ball. Dee Ford was healthy. The interior was mauling people. Obviously, Nick Bosa was a rookie that year, but he didn't look like one. And the 49ers were essentially on a record pace through November with their defensive line. But then the injuries mounted and caught up to them. And by December, the 49ers were leaking oil in 2019. You can remember that was an average defensive line up until the playoffs when they started getting guys back. Well, the opposite trend is happening for the 49ers this year. They were, I think, remarkably average, especially outside of Nick Bosa when it came to pass rushing at the start of the year, right? Especially when Dee Ford started to be unavailable. But now we look at December, and this 49ers pass rush is picking up steam. And that doesn't normally happen. Normally, you expect attrition from the pass rush. Not this time. The 49ers are building. And I actually asked Kyle Shanahan about it yesterday, and he had a good quote, and I'll read it to you guys right now as soon as I pull it up, because to me, it was an unusual trend. And I asked Shanahan if in his history as a coach or coordinator anywhere, he had seen that trend, if it was usual, if it was unusual to him, because obviously he's seen more football than I have. And this is what he said. He said, if you can stay healthy and stuff, I do feel like guys can sometimes lose their juice a bit and hit some lulls in the season. But if you stay healthy, your body can kind of get used to the callus of the season and the callus of practicing. And then you could play at the top of your game. Sometimes guys aren't always at the top of their game when it starts. I don't think we have training camps the way that we used to. We definitely didn't have an off season the way that we used to. There's a fine line with that. And I think all our guys have been getting better throughout the year. And I think they're playing well as a group. I think we're coaching them better too. I think that all that stuff goes hand in hand as you go each week. So super interesting answer for Kyle Shanahan, talking about, the offseason program and training camp being compromised as opposed to what they used to be. They're getting softer and softer every year. And he used that to explain that maybe this 49ers defensive line was primed to peak late, assuming that they stayed healthy. And minus D Ford, who isn't available anymore this season, the 49ers have stayed healthy, and those calluses that Kyle Shanahan talked about have showed up. I mean, Arden Key is a great example of taking to the coaching over the course of the season. He had no sacks weeks 1 to 7. He ranked number 109 in pass rush productivity. That's the PFF stat. Now he ranks in the top 10 in all of those stats: sacks, pass rush productivity, quarterback hits, whatever. Week 8 onward, Arden Key has gone from one of the worst, least productive pass rushers in football to one of the best situational pass rushers in football. And if he keeps this up, I'm going to take off that situational tag. I'll just say one of the best pass rushers in football. We're not quite there yet, so let's pump the brakes on that. But we can confidently say that Arden Key has been one of the best situational pass rushers in football for the 49ers. And that's paired so well with Nick Bosa, who's ready to make history, right? Nick Bosa's at 15 sacks. 19 and a half is the number. That's Aldon Smith's record, 2012 for the 49ers. I think Nick Bosa can get it. Nick Bosa thinks Nick Bosa can get it. Tim Ryan thinks Nick Bosa can get it. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, everybody thinks Nick Bosa can get this, and for good reason. The guy's good for like 1 or 2 sacks a game. He's facing bad offensive lines the next 2 weeks. The Titans have not been good in pass protection. I repeat that again. That's big to note because the 49ers have feasted the past 2 weeks against poor pass blocking offensive lines, and I think Bosa can eat more, especially with Arden Key doing what he's doing over the inside. And by the time you look up, Bosa could be at 18 sacks when the 49ers enter week 18 against the Rams, and he'd only need 10 to break the record. So 20 sacks is within sight for Bosa, especially with Arden Key delivering the counterbalance that we've seen. And guess what? Samson Ebukam played his best pass rushing game for the 49ers against the Atlanta Falcons. He had the sack. Teams tried to cheat a little bit. They tried to block Ebukam with a tight end, and it didn't work. He just barreled over the tight end and into Matt Ryan for the sack. So, I mean, plays like that are really important schematically. And here's why. Because the film is out there now. Okay, we can't block Samson Ebukam with a tight end. Well, if they can't block Samson Ebukam with a tight end, they have to put a tackle on him. Or if he stunts inside a guard, they have to put an actual legit offensive lineman on him. And that means that there's one less guy available for a double team against either Arden Key or Nick Bosa, or, it's a trickle-down effect. And that's how this works as a unit. When guys, I'll rewind a bit. Solomon Thomas, when he was with the 49ers, it was tough for the 49ers because he wasn't nearly as good as they thought he was going to be. His sacks would overwhelmingly come when he worked against tight ends. And that was great, but once he started working against a tackle or a guard or, wherever he was lined up, his productivity would go way down. So teams, knew that they could just neutralize him that way. You could one-on-one Solomon Thomas and you'd be fine. So the next step for Samson Ebukam is to make sure that those sacks start happening. And he had one against a tackle against Cincinnati. I'm not acting like he's been, devoid of sacks recently against tackles, but they need to start happening against offensive linemen. Because once that, is in place, then it's trouble for a defense. Because if Bosa's double teamed, which he has been at the highest rate in the league, well, pick your poison, because other guys are also beating linemen. And Arden Key is beating linemen right now. Samson Ebukam did against Cincinnati. We need to see him do it against, teams moving forward. But I think he's getting confident and he's getting better. And that goes back to the Kyle Shanahan quote of this defensive line is taking Chris Kaceric's coaching. They're developing the callus of the season, right? And they're playing their best football in December, which is huge news for the 49ers. We could talk about the cornerback position all we want. The truth is it's probably not going to get even much better, even if the 49ers add Breeland, Bashad Breeland, who was just waived. There's a reason that Minnesota parted ways with him, and that's because he wasn't playing good football. So you're not going to find a good corner at this point of the season unless you win the lottery. That'd be like finding a lottery ticket in December. Those guys aren't just floating around out there. The way that you make your cornerbacks better is A, of course, coaching and development and experience. And the 49ers hope Ambry Thomas gets a bit better there. But B, the pass rush. And that's been the 49ers formula throughout this whole Shanahan-Lynch tenure. Rush over coverage. Rush fuels coverage. In 2019, that was the story. Of course, it goes back the other way. Of course, they're dependent on each other. Of course, the coverage can fuel the rush, but the 49ers have started with the rush. That's been their step one. And throughout the early portions of the season, the problem is the rush wasn't quite there. And I think now it's showing signs that it could really be there to be the leader of this defense. So that's why we talk about this defensive line the way that we do. They're peaking at the right time. All right. I think some of that happened, to answer your question here. But again, you don't release a guy because of an altercation of practice if he's a really good player, is my point. And the Vikings are still a playoff contender. So he hadn't been having a good season. This is just a general point. Guy, you don't have, at this point of the season, you don't have all pros floating around out there. I think that's just a fact of the matter. So you generally have to make it work with who you have. The 49ers, back in the year that they played the Green Bay Packers and beat them in the playoffs at the end of that long streak of futility against the Packers when Steve Young threw the touchdown pass to Owens, they signed Charles Haley out of retirement, who'd been out of football for 2 years, the week of that wild card game. So he obviously wasn't in great shape, but I mean, this is a future Hall of Famer at the time, obviously. And the 49ers were so depleted on the defensive line that they needed just something. So they signed Charles Haley right off the street. And he actually delivered the game-changing pressure. He pressured Brett Favre into an interception. So that ended up working out for the 49ers, but they knew they had a limited amount of juice to squeeze in that situation from Charles Haley. And they got it, to their credit, but that was an exceptional situation. I don't think you have a future Hall of Famer just walking around right now at that cornerback position that the 49ers would be able to, really move the needle with. And if there is a guy, if Breeland is that guy, they'll sign him. But I think that they're confident. Again, going back to the cornerback discussion, I think they like their situation a lot better when Emmanuel Mosley comes back. And I think they like their situation a lot better if the pass rush continues firing the way it is. And do not sleep on K'Wan Williams, on Jaquaski Tart and Jimmy Ward, and even Talanoa Hufanga, because those guys are playing football right now, and it's really helping the 49ers out. Yes, Breeland did intercept the 49ers in the Super Bowl. And I mean, yeah, this is my point. Breeland this year has not been playing good football. All right, let's go to the offense for the 49ers. We'll start with the offensive line. We're going to go quarterbacks last today. Got a lot of viewers on right now. That's good to see. Good to see. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Hello to all of you on Twitter. That's where you follow me. And let's keep this up. This is fun. The 49ers are in contention in December, and we could sit here and break down the roster and make a lot of cool videos. And hopefully you're reading me on The Athletic as well, because I can get it's video could do one thing, but the written word and some of the data and stuff that I can present through the articles can do an entirely different thing. So I recommend them as pieces that work in conjunction with each other. You get, your main course and your dessert. And if you're a bigger reader, the writing is your main course. If you're a bigger video watcher, then the YouTube is your main course. But make sure you have your dessert or your side dish or whatever to go with that, with The Athletic and with this. Okay, so now we go to the offensive line. I'm going to make this a bit bigger just for a second. Trent Williams, he's going to be headed to the Pro Bowl. They're going to announce that for sure on Wednesday, but finished number one in the fan voting. And I would imagine that all the coaching and player components and writer components or whatever the hell goes into it, I don't really care, but he'll get his deserved spot in the Pro Bowl. It was an outrage, yes, when he was number 8. George Kittle made sure that everybody knew. And now Trent Williams having a historic year. If you look at the run blocking grades and the run blocking film, I mean, the guy's been perfect in the out wide zone run game. He's given up a couple pressures in the past game, but everybody does. It's kind of like quarterbacks. Every quarterback is going to throw an interception here now and then. Every tackle is going to get beaten now and then, especially in this day and age of ultra athletic edge rushers. But Trent Williams, I mean, that signing for the 49ers looks really good right now. He's playing his best football. Now, it's a long signing, of course, but he needs to be good for that contract to legitimize itself. He needs to be good for 3 years, and he's already been good for one of the 3 years. After the third year, the 49ers have easier outs, and it won't hurt if Trent Williams starts declining, as he moves into his mid to upper 30s. But I think right now it looks like it's very possible that Trent Williams will be good for 3 years. 1 down, 2 to go. I mean, that first one's not down yet, but we know that he's been good this season. He's been excellent. He's been legendary at that left tackle position. Be interesting to see if Laken Tomlinson gets what I think is a deserved Pro Bowl berth. I mean, Tomlinson is just solid in both phases of the game. He's been an above-average pass protector, and he's paired well with Williams in the run game. But most of all, he's just durable. And durability needs to count for something. And the league is getting more and more injured these days because guys are getting faster and faster. It's just minor car accidents happening there on a play-by-play basis. And so it's not just the 49ers who are hurt all the time. A lot of teams are hurt all the time. So we need to tip our cap to guys who aren't hurt all the time, who are able to withstand the carnage of an NFL season consistently. And we can knock on wood again. Laken Tomlinson has been doing that for the 49ers. That absolutely should be part of Pro Bowl consideration because you could see how much injuries impact the team. The continuity is lost, right? When you have Tomlinson blocking with Trent Williams, forming that combination on the left side, that takes cohesion, that takes chemistry. One of those guys gets hurt, you have to plug somebody else in. All of a sudden, A, you lose the ability of the first-string player, but B, you lose the cohesion that the 2 first-string players had built with each other. So it's a big deal that Laken Tomlinson has been able to stay that healthy. It's also been a big deal that Alex Mack has joined this offensive line. The 49ers no longer have trouble with A-gap blitzes. I mean, imagine that. Like the 49ers literally no longer have trouble with A-gap blitzes. That's something that tormented them throughout the entirety of Kyle Shanahan's tenure when Weston Richburg wasn't available, which was more often than not. So, I mean, that's a huge deal. Between Mack and Laken Tomlinson, you breathe easy about half of the interior. Now, I get it. Daniel Brunskill's been a way better run blocker than a pass protector, but at least you have Mack able to help him with that center right guard pivot. And we all know, I mean, the story of the right side of the offensive line, these 2 guys right here that I highlighted, is a simple one. They're really good run blockers, especially Compton. But the pass protection is, the Achilles heel of the 49ers defense. Let's say the energy shaft of the Death Star of the 49ers defense is the cornerback position. Well, the energy shaft of the Death Star that is the 49ers offense, that one weakness that can really be exploited is the pass protection of the right side of the line of scrimmage. And that's Brunskill and Compton. Those guys are below average, and in Compton's case, bottom barrel pass protectors, but they're really good run protectors. And in Compton's case, the dichotomy is so massive that he's the top run blocking guy since he started in week 12, according to the PFF grade, and he's at the bottom of pass protecting. So he's the best at something and the very worst at something, which shows you why the 49ers strive to be a run at volume team. Because if you're a passive volume team, you're going to expose your biggest weakness. They want to hide their biggest weakness, which is pass protection on the right side, and accentuate their biggest strength, which is run blocking across the whole line. I mean, even Trent Williams is a better run blocking grade. It's nearly perfect this year. It's 99, which I think is perfect at PFF terms, is a better run blocking grade than a pass blocking grade. All these guys are better run blockers than they are pass blockers. That's just how the 49ers are set up. They're athletic. They'll maul you up front because they can move in a downsized league. It works against the run defense, but when those edge rushers pin their ears back and, just get after it, it's tough for lighter offensive linemen to anchor. So that's the state of the 49ers offensive line. It's a run blocking unit. So when we're going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, credit to him for executing the system behind a run blocking offensive line. That's the system. That's what Jimmy Garoppolo is being paid to execute, and he's doing a good job. So we have to view all this stuff within context, and that's what it is. It's getting to the point in the season where I don't think we see Aaron Banks unless there's an injury. So everybody expects rookies to be ready on day one. And I think the 49ers actually expected Banks to be ready this season. That's why they drafted him in the second round in a win now year. But sometimes it's not going to happen. And I think that's the case this year. You don't just make that shuffle this late in the season. Again, continuity is a thing. The 49ers are playing well right now. They're run blocking well right now. And Banks is working on his body, but I think at this point, you have to think that barring injury, 2022 is more likely for him. All right, that's the state of the 49ers offensive line. To me, it's remarkable that they've been able to overcome the loss of Mike McGlinchey. Yes, Compton is not a good pass blocker, but that's found money. The way that he's been able to run block, and this goes back to his time in the Shanahan system. I mean, the Shanahans drafted Tom Compton in Washington, right? So he's an older player. They played, Shanahan coached him in Atlanta in 2016. So he knows the outside zone blocking scheme. He knows what's required of him. He's gotten his body, trimmed down, ready to do what's necessary from the tackle position. And he's gotten the focus on tackle this year. Compton had always been a guard / tackle, jack of all trades, backup, reserve lineman. This year, it's been exclusively tackle, and it's paid off for the 49ers. So schematically, Kyle Shanahan has been able to work around the loss of McGlinchey, who had been delivering a good year pass protecting, which is also notable for the future. And Compton has helped them do that, but the 49ers have had to really focus on shielding him in the pass game. Now, it's going to be a bigger issue this week. The Tennessee Titans have the number 7 adjusted sack rate in the league. They have 35 sacks on the season. This pass rush of the Tennessee Titans can get after you. So unlike the Falcons, who didn't have much of a pass rush, in fact, it was the worst in the league last week. They were, I think, number 6. They only had 16 sacks, which was number 32 in the NFL, which was dead last. The Titans can get after you a little bit. This is a defense that has a pulse. And along that defensive line, this is the 3-4 front for Tennessee. So it's different than some of the fronts the 49ers have been facing, but they still have some capable pass rushers. Harold Landry, remember the edge rusher who came out of Boston College in 2018? He's got 11 sacks. Danico Autry, another lighter edge rusher, a little heavier than Landry, so not as much of a speed guy, but he's athletic. He's got 7 sacks. And then they have a big body, Jeffrey Simmons, who technically is not a nose tackle because it's a 3-4, but he's more in a 4-3, it'd be more of a DT type. Jeffrey Simmons, 305-pounder. He's got 7.5 sacks. So that's the big 3 for Tennessee. Landry especially, that guy can rip it around the edge, right, with those 11 sacks. It's going to be a tough game from a pass protection standpoint for the 49ers. The Titans have been playing decent defense. Not great defense, decent defense. And it's running the football this week is going to be really important because you want to keep the 49ers offensive line out of those pass protection situations against what is a decent Tennessee front. Okay, on to wide receivers and tight ends for the 49ers. I mean, the ball distribution has been amazing, right? The 49ers are getting open at multiple levels of the offensive system. They're number 3 or number 4 offensive DVOA now. It's a top 5 unit in terms of both run and pass. So Garoppolo is executing the 49ers offense exactly the way that the 49ers want it to be executed. And, that's only possible if the receivers are doing their job. And, we talked about this a long time ago. Brandon Ayuk is confident now. He's running the routes, getting the separation the 49ers need of him. The slant 36-yard gain was huge. Deebo Samuel, the more that the 49ers can get from Jeff Wilson or Elijah Mitchell in the backfield, the more Samuel can focus on the outside. And, the more he can dominate on those intermediate routes. But that third receiver, that emergence, that's so big to me. Jawan Jennings is so big to me because at their best, the 49ers have Ayuk, Samuel, and Kittle commanding defensive attention. If they're fully healthy and those 3 guys are commanding defensive attention, then Jawan Jennings is going to be able to make plays. Now, Jawan didn't have the best game against the Falcons. He dropped 2 big passes. He dropped one when the 49ers were back up against their own goal line, and then he dropped one, I forgot when it was later in the game, but he had a big catch where he really wanted to be one of the Yak Bros, right? It was like Jawan Jennings was like, I want to be one of the Yak Bros, makes the catch, rumbles downfield, picks up the first down, sets up one of the 49ers 4 consecutive touchdowns. he's the X factor for me if the 49ers are healthy, right? If they're not healthy, the X factor is Elijah Mitchell because you got to get Deebo Samuel out of the backfield on every down. If Deebo is able to split time and the defense doesn't know where he's going to line up, this pass catching system is nearly unguardable, in my opinion, because you have Ayuk on the outside. You have Kittle lined up as a joker anywhere. Deebo Samuel is your second joker lined up anywhere. How the hell? And then obviously you have dedicated running backs in Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson. So I just listed 5 pieces. How the hell are you supposed to account for Jawan Jennings if you have so many effective either outside or joker? And even Brandon Ayuk can be considered a joker piece because they run the end arounds to him. How the hell are you supposed to cover all those guys? You can't. That's the answer. You can't. So to me, Jawan Jennings, if he can hold on to the football and develop into a consistently credible catching threat, which I think he's well on his way to being, that's how this 49ers offense continues playing at a top 5 level. Again, this is a top 5 49ers offense. Number 4 DVOA is there. Number 3 or 4 EPA per play. I mean, these guys are producing. John Lynch came on KMBR today and said Jimmy Garoppolo is executing the system exactly the way that Kyle Shanahan wants. I mean, that's music, should be music to everybody's ears. You're only as good as your play caller quarterback combination. And that combination is only going to be as good as the targets that it has. And the targets for the 49ers are evolving into exactly into what the 49ers want. Is that amorphous unit that's so hard to grab. Sanu is a player's coach. That's a good one right there. I think that Mohamed Sanu, they said he was doing a little bit of that Emmanuel Sanders stuff. I remember he worked with Shanahan back in 2016. But so far, this has been the best 49ers offense that we've seen of the Kyle Shanahan era, better even than 2019. To the backfield. So I don't think that we're going to see Elijah Mitchell this week. It's still too quick of a turnaround. I don't think we need to see Elijah Mitchell this week because Jeff Wilson's been doing the job. I mean, what was it? 21 carries, 110 yards against the Atlanta Falcons. He's hitting the outside zone the way the 49ers need the outside zone to be hit, going to the outside. I mean, tip your cap to Jeff Wilson. He has recovered from the knee injury. He's getting better every week. And here's the thing. The 49ers offense needs a certain type of runner to work, to function the way that they want to function. So when Raheem Mostert went down, thankfully they had Elijah Mitchell to be able to hit the wide zone and spread the field out the way that they need it to be spread out with that burst threat. But when Elijah Mitchell went down, the 49ers were in a bind. So that's why they moved Deebo Samuel to the backfield, because not just any average Joe would be able to do it. Contrary to, popular opinion, you can't just plug and play running backs in Shanahan's system. You have to have a certain skill set to be able to work. So that's why they moved their top receiver, a 1,000-yard receiver, Deebo Samuel, into the backfield. That obviously has a domino effect, though, because Deebo can't do his normal versatile job if he's constricted to the backfield. So the emergence of Jeff Wilson, and that might have been a big break for the 49ers at the end of the day, him tearing his meniscus in June, as opposed to later in the season, meant that Wilson came into this back stretch run with fresh legs. And now that he's working his way back into the mix, that the legs look better with each subsequent week, well, Jeff Wilson can now be that threat to hit the outside zone for the 49ers while Elijah Mitchell is out. I still think Mitchell's a better outside zone runner. I think he clearly has more burst, and Wilson specializes in the inside zone in punishing people. But 2 is better than 1, right? So when Mitchell comes back, you'll have Mitchell and Wilson in the backfield, and then Deebo Samuel's exclusively used on gadget plays out of the backfield, and that's the way that the 49ers want it. So this team is rounding into health, rounding into form. Knock on wood, we like healthy football, right? But if this continues, the 49ers will be very sustainable offensively. I think they can cross the Tennessee bridge, though, without Elijah Mitchell and only Jeff Wilson. All right. We have the most viewers now that we've ever had on the YouTube Live. So on to the main event, the quarterback discussion. This is sure to ensure that people don't argue with each other in the comment section and on Twitter or whatever. I haven't been on Twitter. I was on for a bit this morning, but took half of Tuesday off, and it makes your life a lot better when you don't have to see people jawing at each other, jawing at you back and forth. It just gets annoying. It is funny, though. I did notice an early Tuesday trend on Twitter that like a lot of people seem to be coming onto the Jimmy Garoppolo boat all of a sudden. So, I mean, you just can't. People are just such prisoners of the moment. Garoppolo is going to throw an interception on Thursday. Just watch, and everybody's going to jump off. And then some people are going to be on again after he throws a touchdown pass, and then everybody's going to jump off. It's going to be this. It's this violent, chaotic thing. And one thing that I feel that I try to bring to the table is an even keel throughout all of this, because the entire NFL has been violent and chaotic offensively this season. Expected points per play of the average offense are minus 3.07 this year. They're normally right around 0. That's a huge shift downward in terms of offensive football in the NFL. Just a down year. My theory is that the lack of OTAs, the lack of a standard offseason program, all this and all that has finally caught up to offenses around the league, and defenses have created more chaos this year than ever before. But the big overarching takeaway as far as Garoppolo goes, and as far as the prisoner of the moment mentality of 49ers fans and a lot of analysts surrounding Garoppolo goes, is that when Garoppolo throws an incompletion or Garoppolo throws a pick, he's not the only quarterback in the NFL that's throwing incompletions and picks. In fact, every single quarterback in the NFL is doing so at a higher rate this year than is normal. Like, offense around the league is down in general this year. Now, with all that considered, Garoppolo is playing really, really efficient football for the 49ers over the course of the past, 8 weeks? Yeah, 7 weeks maybe. Ever since the Chicago game in week 8. Sorry, my math isn't very good. But since then, I mean, he's been either number 1 or number 2 in efficiency. He is executing Kyle Shanahan's system the way that Kyle Shanahan's system needs to be executed. And you have really, really bad arguments across social media that happen all the time. And sometimes these don't happen when I'm at the bar and somebody walks up to me and wants to start talking 49ers. People struggle to disassociate Garoppolo from Shanahan. And there's no reason to disassociate Garoppolo from Shanahan. Would you try to disassociate Joe Montana from Bill Walsh, or John Elway from Mike Shanahan? Or if you want to just, compare it to more modern quarterbacks, I don't think you should disassociate Aaron Rodgers from Matt LaFleur. I mean, the quarterback play caller combination is the sacred, duality, right? It's the sacred partnership for NFL offenses. You have to have both to produce efficiently and to win football games. All of the great quarterbacks in NFL history have worked in a system. Jimmy Garoppolo, playing at excellent efficiency this year, is working in Shanahan's system. You go and you execute the system. It is formulaic. That's what needs to happen. Patrick Mahomes plays with Andy Reid. You can't tell me that Andy Reid doesn't have anything to do with Patrick Mahomes' success. So the point is that Shanahan has, and I'm going to do the separate video on Kyle Shanahan later, so make sure that you subscribe right now, and we'll talk about Shanahan. I think that one's going to come out tomorrow. Right. So Mike has me making sure that video is coming out tomorrow. Yeah. So Shanahan's going to come out tomorrow, but you have to consider that you're never going to be able to disentangle quarterback and coach, and you shouldn't disentangle them. Any smart analysis of the quarterback position is going to consider the scheme and how well that quarterback executes the scheme. And right now, Garoppolo is doing it at a level that Kyle Shanahan wants. So why don't we talk about Trey Lance? Trey Lance is still developing behind the scenes. The 49ers still feel confident about him. I had a video of him throwing some deep balls, some really pretty deep passes during the pregame warmups against the Falcons. So you can go ahead and check that out. That's on the channel. I still remain a firm believer that at some point this year, and maybe Shanahan's saving it for better opposition, and Tennessee might not be that better opposition. They're a number 23 DVOA team. I mean, I think the best opposition for the 49ers in the regular season moving forward is going to be the Rams, and then obviously you have the playoffs. But maybe when the 49ers really need it, maybe Shanahan's saving it in his back pocket. I still think that Trey Lance and his skill set is too valuable to leave on the bench. I've maintained that all season. I believe Kyle Shanahan thought that very clearly early in the season when he's using both of these guys. But there's got to be some kind of package play that surprises an opposing defense with maybe both quarterbacks on the field at the same time that the 49ers will spring on an opposition at some point this season. And maybe you don't use it against the Titans, who you're better than. Maybe you don't use it against the Texans, who you're obviously better than. But maybe in week 18 against the Rams, there's a play or two for Trey Lance. I'll die on that hill. I still think it's going to happen. And whether it be against the Rams or in the playoffs, maybe it's smart for Kyle Shanahan to conceal it right now. But from everything that I've heard, the 49ers are still happy with Trey Lance's development. And from everything that I can glean and everything that I know from hearing stuff inside the building and all this and all that, the 49ers are not yet decided on what they're going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo next season. And that's the right play. You shouldn't be decided. If you're running a multi-million-dollar business and you're making decisions before you have all the data, you should be fired. You shouldn't make decisions until you absolutely have to. That's when the smartest decision is made. That's when the greatest option power is held. And guess what? That's the 49ers' opinion on Jimmy Garoppolo right now. They haven't made a decision yet. Now, I think that they had an overarching plan. I think that they had an anticipation that this would be the Garoppolo year and that 2022 would be the Lance year. But stuff can change. And I don't think that you finalize a decision until all of the data is there. You don't cross a bridge until you actually hit the river. And when the 49ers hit the river, we'll see what will happen. So far, the 49ers have won with Jimmy Garoppolo and lost without him. Everybody talking about how Kyle Shanahan's scheme can do everything and is the be-all, end-all. Well, the scheme didn't work too well for Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard. And C.J. Beathard was a hand-picked third-round draft pick. So you would think you'd win a few more games if the scheme was that great. But no, the scheme is good. The quarterback is also good, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo. And when you put two good things together, you can have great results. And that is the number 3 offense in NFL. Maybe number 4, depending on where you check, what stat you use. But 49ers are number 3 or number 4. They're in the top 5. Two good things, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan's scheme, have melded into one, and you have this. The offense can only get better, in my opinion. You're still waiting for Elijah Mitchell to come back. You're still waiting to be able to deploy Deebo Samuel absolutely everywhere with total unpredictability. But at this point, Garoppolo is doing a great job. He's been accurate, and we can, talk specifically about his skill set. But the truth of the matter is that it just fits really well with what the 49ers have architected this year. Any questions about the Jimmy Garoppolo situation? Again, we have record viewers right now. So if you ask a good question, a record amount of viewers will see the question. There's a lot of questions. I may just pick one or two at random and then go from there. I have to go eat. I haven't eaten anything yet today. Well, let's answer this one. What's the percentage chance as it stands right now that the 49ers bring back Jimmy Garoppolo next year? This is what we'll finish with. I think the 49ers' decision to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo next year relies on two important variables. Variable A is Trey Lance's progress and development. If they legitimately believe that Trey Lance is able to deliver the efficiency that Garoppolo is delivering right now, and Garoppolo's efficiency, by the way, let's just get to this. Let's put this out there one more time. We could just go with the DVOA because I tweeted that right here. This is what the 49ers are working with right now. Number 1 is Rodgers. Number 2 is Brady. Number 3 is Stafford. Number 4 is Garoppolo. Knocking on the door there to pass Stafford and Brady if he continues playing well. If the 49ers believe that Trey Lance can approach that level of efficiency with the help of Kyle Shanahan's scheme in 2022, then they can part ways with Jimmy Garoppolo and I think get a healthy return in a trade. That's variable A. Will Trey Lance be at that spot by 2022? I don't think it's a slam dunk. I mean, being a top 5 efficiency quarterback is not a given, no matter how talented you are. And I think Trey Lance is very talented, but there's something to what Garoppolo is doing. There really is. And top 5 is top 5. There's no arguing with it. So if Lance can get to that level, then the 49ers will happily move on from Jimmy Garoppolo in exchange for trade capital. Variable B is what Garoppolo does in the playoffs this year. if Jimmy Garoppolo leads the 49ers to the Super Bowl or wins the Super Bowl, especially if he wins the Super Bowl, I think the 49ers are bound to keep him. Like they can't just get away from that. You're not going to leave a Super Bowl winning quarterback, especially when the offense has been driving this team. So that's firmly in Garoppolo's control, variable B. Variable A is firmly in Lance's control, right? It's not in Garoppolo's control. So I think you have two competing things working with each other. But when you see like those two things, and variable B, the 49ers going to the Super Bowl, let's establish it right now. It's not likely, right? Even if they're a really good team, it's not likely because it takes a lot to make it to the Super Bowl. Variable A, I think also, though, Lance being as efficient as Garoppolo also isn't, I wouldn't say it's over 50% likely. I don't know where Lance is going to be next year, but it's interesting because both variables are unlikely, which leads us to this area of, I don't know. That adds up, like two good things add to a great thing. Well, these two unlikely variables lead to uncertainty. I don't think that the 49ers know. So at this point, I would just say it's 25 to 30% likely that Garoppolo's back next season just because that was the initial status quo. And the two variables that we have deciding what's going to happen next year are still in I don't know territory. So if the 49ers go on a run and get to that Super Bowl, well, all of a sudden, I think that shoots up over 50%. If there are any hiccups in Lance's development, well, I think it shoots up to over 50%. But again, it's too early to know either of those two things. But you wanted a firm number from me. I put your question up there. 25 to 30%, I think, are the chances right now. But it's way too early. Again, the 49ers won't cross a bridge until they get to it. Anyway, 49ers-Titans. We are headed for a Thursday night showdown in Nashville. I'll have another video coming out this evening. Make sure you subscribe to the channel now. We're growing fast. The more you subscribe, the more these come out. Hell, I talked to you guys for an hour today. So I do this on an empty stomach. I'm hungry. The best way you can pay me back, and I'll post food pictures next time, is if you subscribe, because that's good stuff when we get more people on the channel. Niners Titans on Thursday, another video coming tonight, another video coming Wednesday. Hell, if enough of you subscribe, more videos than just that coming throughout this whole time. Thank you all for the love. I am very happy about it, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you, Leviathan. I love you too. Everybody, goodbye.